She is now currently in private practice. And the clinical director of the Paul Robeson School. A very pivotal person in the whole area of the black mind. As I mentioned last night, she was virtually fired from Howard University for thinking independently, which is not unusual. But she has done, serious research on this whole question of AIDS. We had her at we run a holistic retreat every year over the Memorial holiday. Other people celebrate Memorial Day. A large group of Africans in this country are celebrating ourselves. And we run a retreat each year. For the last 2 years, we've had Dr. Welsing come up and spend some time with us. It was a 3-day retreat. I'll talk a little bit more about that tonight. But she has been a person that has essentially galvanized a lot of people around this country to begin to rethink a lot of things. As mentioned last night, we're trying to encourage her to finish this book, The Yssis. I found you editor, Cheryl Marks. She said, look, I don't even edit it, that's the problem. I want you all to give a warm welcome to our dear Dr. Francis.
Thank you very much, Hakeem. Ladies and gentlemen, I am very pleased to...
Can't hear too well.
Can't hear.
Is the mic on? On, yeah. Can we turn it up? That's it. Right.
Well, let me say that I'm very glad to be home. Can you hear? Only if you hold it right in front of you. Well, I'm very glad to... All right, well, I will try to do my best to talk up a little bit. I'm glad to be home and to see my family. I have a mother here and a younger sister and a nephew and an adopted nephew, T.I.P. Green. I would like to share on this very important occasion of the 20th anniversary of Third World Press. I would like to share with this audience some of my thinking and to share some conclusions about where we are at this point in time in this area of the world and throughout the world. I would like to begin by maybe making these remarks a memorial tribute to Mayor Harold Washington.
All right.
That I was shocked to hear of his death in Washington. And I was shocked at how shocked I was, if you understand what I'm saying. That I walked around in a state of shock, and it's still very hard for me to think that he is no longer with us. And as I drove around Chicago from Midway Airport to home and to my sister's house and driving up and down the streets, I kept saying, "Oh, wow, the streets are cleaner." And it seemed as though there was another vibration in this city where I was born. And I think Harold Washington had a very profound impact. And I like to look at events that we consider to be tragic and say, what kind of lesson is to be learned from something that, we feel is pain? And I believe that there are some very important lessons that we can gain from Mayor Harold Washington. And I think that his passing may be a test for black people in the city of Chicago. And the question is whether or not the people in Chicago, the black people, rise to the occasion to show Harold Washington that he is still here. But we can talk about that further. I think that the thing that we must do as black people is to begin to have a very clear context in which we do our thinking. That events never occur in the abstract. They are always occurring in particular patterns, and they are occurring in relationship to other things. And when I talk to black people across this country, and I've recently come back from England and talked to black people there, and I say that there's a clue to what ails us to some extent, and it's how we greet each other. Many of us greet each other by saying, "What's happening? Hey, what's happening?" And I say that's because we don't really understand what is going on. That when we really understand what is going on, we will be able to say, like some other people, "How do you do?" But we are constantly saying, "What's happening?"
Well.
Now I would like to share my idea about what is happening and the context in which I do my thinking and in which I understand world events. And that goes to the issue of white supremacy. We've used the word racism for a long time, or we've used the word discrimination, but I am using the phrase white supremacy and in parenthesis racism, or the other way around, racism and in parenthesis white supremacy, but the emphasis being on white supremacy. And I say that this is the thing that we must understand, that we are not going to be able to understand black male-female relations. We are not going to be able to understand teenage pregnancy. We are not going to be able to understand drug addiction. We are not going to be able to really understand the tendency to have trash build up around us in the places where we live unless we come to grips with white supremacy. What is this white supremacy? And I want everybody to take out a little piece of paper and get a pencil and write this name and write this telephone number down. The name is Neely Fuller, N-E-E-L-Y, Fuller, F-U-L-L-E-R, and his phone number is area code 202-484-5461. This gentleman is the author of a book called The Textbook for Victims of Racism or White Supremacy. I would recommend, this book costs about $25, 25 or 30. I consider it to be a very, very important book. I worked with this gentleman 17 years to get his book published. He is a guard at the Bureau of Engraving in the District of Columbia. This gentleman said back in 1956 that he thought that racism was about people who classify themselves as white, maintaining control and domination over the people that they classified as non-white. And when I heard him say this around 1967, a light bulb turned on in my head. It just clicked. That's it. Prior to that time, I considered myself to be a Marxist, and I was looking at racism as a byproduct of economic activity. But as I attempted to use Marx's definition, it wasn't producing the answers that I needed. And at that point in time, I was training to become a psychiatrist, and I wanted to have some answers so that I could help black people solve their mental health problems. But as I attempted to use Marx's concept, I wasn't really getting the traction that I needed to solve these problems as a physician. And so I heard this gentleman one day start talking about a book he had been working on, and he said, no, that you have a system of white supremacy, and that is about people who classify themselves as white being in control and domination. Well, I'll talk on this one. Okay? Is that better? No, that's an echo. Can that be turned down a little bit? Okay.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. So Fuller said that this system, that white supremacy was a system, and that, listen to this, that this system functioned in the area of economics. This system functioned in the area of education. This system functioned in the area of entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Are you all with me? Yeah. Do you see the difference? Marx was saying that this was causing this. And Fuller said, no, we have a global system of white supremacy that carries out activity in economics, education, entertainment, labor law, politics, meaning all the areas of people activity. So then Cress Welsing comes along and she said, why? Why indeed would these people set up such a system? And the question why is a very important question in psychiatric medicine. The question why is a very important question for the brain-computer period, and that's why anybody who knows a little 2-year-old or 18-month-old or, probably 2, and they keep saying, why? Why, Mommy? Why? Because this is the question that turns the brain-computer on. It is a question about cause and effect. You see? What is happening so that the brain can say, oh, okay, I've got it now. Now I can understand, and I can move from there to understand many other things. So I said, why would these people do this? And then my education, starting at Douglas Elementary School, Wendell Phillips High School, Antioch College, Howard Medical School, okay, classmates or whatever, that all of this came together once I raised this question, because this question just said, brain-computer, go to work on this problem. And so I was standing in my kitchen, as a matter of fact, doing dishes or cooking, and the brain-computer came with the printout. And the printout was this, that here we are on this planet Earth. 1/10 of the people have white skin. 9/10 of the people are black, brown, red, and yellow.
Well,
One of the things that the 1/10 would say is that the 9/10, particularly the black people, were genetically inferior. How many people have heard that? Everybody. So I also understood in training as a psychiatrist, when somebody is pointing, something's wrong with you, Something is wrong with you. Something is wrong with you. Something is wrong with you that the behavioral scientist knows that the finger that is pointing at somebody else has 3 fingers that are pointing at them. And so I also thought about that and I said, oh, wow. These people are telling us that we are genetically inferior, but the same people are genetic recessive. Do you see? And even if you have not studied formal genetics, everybody in this room, every black person is a scholar in genetics. Because all black people know don't marry anybody darker than yourself. You see, that's genetic knowledge under white supremacy, because black people didn't like their color and were trying to get away from this very powerful and dominant color. But the people who were classified as white learned after they had circumnavigated the globe, and everywhere the people were colored, and those white men who had sexual intercourse with the black women and waited around 9 months, they found out that white plus black is equal to color. White plus brown is equal to color. White plus red is equal to color. And white plus yellow is equal to color. So they understood after that voyage, after those many voyages, that these people, the black, brown, red, and yellow people, were the majority people on the planet, and that they were genetically dominant to white-skinned people. And they also made a quick brain-computer calculation that if they did not maintain control and domination over the black, brown, red, and yellow people, that white people could disappear on the planet. Now, black people, and this is what I wrote about in this paper, the Cress theory of color confrontation and racism, that was first discussed in 1970. That's 17 years ago. I was a baby. I'm kidding, okay. But I needed to understand, what is going on, to begin to make sense of this experience that we have. And being a physician, see, a lot of times some of the other disciplines, they can have a whole lot of ideas, but they are not required to get people well. But when you are required to get people well, and you make your living based on your ability to get people well, there's another dimension. It's not just talking for fun and games. It's a question of, I've got to understand this, because when somebody comes in my office and says, Dr. Welsing, help me with this, I've got to understand enough to be able to help them. And since I was trained as a black psychiatrist, that black people didn't have the intelligence to talk about their problems, check it, and that the best treatment for them was drugs, and I said, no way, that I was going to understand what the problems were that black people faced so that I could share that understanding with them and help them solve the problems in their lives. So that my having to understand this, but once I understood it, I said, oh, okay. Now I understand. The discussions that were going on before, talking about black male-female relations, you've got to understand that those problems are tied to the system of white supremacy. And they are tied in a particular way. And they are tied in this way. Where's my eraser? Oh, here's the eraser. That if the problem that the people who classify themselves as white, if the problem that they face is white supremacy for the purpose of white genetic survival, are you with me?
Right.
So this is the key. This tiny group of people, this tiny minority of people on the planet, are trying to survive genetically. And so their thing, a lot of people say, oh no, their thing is money.